Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is a bit of an update before I do my hits and losses video concerning what took place in the White House yesterday. I'm away for the weekend, completely different setup, completely different mic. I'm using my laptop camera, so apologies in advance of all of that kind of stuff. It was disastrous, in my opinion, what took place in the White House, and it was all to do with the fact that Zelensky was going to meet Trump in the White House on a Friday, and on a Thursday, Putin phoned the White House, phoned Trump, knowing that he could manipulate Trump, and did exactly that. Did exactly the right thing as far as Russia were concerned, got inside Trump's head just before that meeting, and essentially this meeting was dictated by the Russians. As far as I can tell, Trump has now come out and regurgitated absolute nonsense with regard to freezing the lines, which is to the advantage of Russia. Russia just get to keep whatever they have taken. I couldn't be angrier with Donald Trump, and he is just the weakest of weak leaders. He's pathetic. And to have Pete Hegseth as his Secretary of War turn up to this meeting with a Russian tie, this is the Russian tie. Look, Russia plain flag tie. That's what it is, and that's what he's wearing. That's not an American tie. That is a Russian tie. What is going on there? That does need to be explained. You look at that tie, and you're like, those are the Russian colours, and you're in a meeting with Zelensky wearing the Russian colours. It's just disgusting. Pete Hegseth showed up to the White House meeting today with President Zelensky wearing a Russian tricolour flag tie. These people love Putin and Russia, says Jake Pro. Beggars belief. Okay, so broadly what happened? Let's run through some quick summary. So Trump told Zelensky in a tense meeting that he doesn't intend to provide long-range Tomahawk missiles, at least for now. Some people are saying it was a cordial meeting, that both the phone call with Putin and the meeting with Zelensky was cordial, which is to say that in a sense, it all went fine, but it was kind of arm's length rather than these are the people we want to support. Nobody shouted, but Trump was tough. Quote, Trump gave several strong statements during the meeting, and at some points it got a bit emotional, one source said. The meeting ended abruptly after 2.5 hours. Quote, I think we're done. Let's see what happens next week, Trump said, referring to planned talks between the US and Russia. Trump intends to meet Putin in Budapest sometime in the next 2 weeks. So, this was all overshadowed by Putin phoning up the day before and them agreeing to meet in Budapest, which is not neutral territory. That is pro-Russian territory. Putin really dictating the negotiations, I think, again. Trump stressed that the current US proposal for a diplomatic solution is for the war to end with the front lines frozen in place, a difficult proposition for Ukraine to accept. They're not going to accept that. Mark Rutte proposed an urgent follow-up call between European national security advisors over the weekend. During Zelensky's call with the European leaders, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer proposed working with the US to draft peace for Ukraine along the lines of Trump's 20-point plan for Gaza, the source on the call said. So who knows what's going to happen now? I presume the European leaders are scrabbling about trying to work out what's really happened and do some damage control here, which is kind of what happens every time Trump goes off script and gets manipulated by Russia. And it's like, oh, we're back to square one. This is poor. This is really poor from the American administration, in my opinion. RBC Ukraine reports that Zelensky brought Trump maps with pain points of the Russian defense industry. The interlocutor in the Ukrainian delegation said that Zelensky and a team this time also brought to the meeting with Trump several maps that are of great importance for the conversation. So this is along the lines that previously Zelensky has said that the Americans were referring to basically Russian maps, that Russia provided the intel, Russia provided the maps, and that's clearly inappropriate for discussions concerning the future of Ukraine and for understanding really what's going on the front lines. Now, here is Trump speaking, talking of Tomahawks.
We need Tomahawks, or we need a lot of other weapons that we're sending to Ukraine. And one of the reasons we want to get this war over is exactly that. Hopefully we'll be able to get the war over without thinking about Tomahawks. I think we're fairly close to that. Yeah, go ahead.
Fairly close to getting the war completed without Tomahawks. So Tomahawks aren't going to be going, which is what we talked about yesterday. Stop right now at the battle line. Trump calls on Russia and Ukraine to end the war immediately along the current front line. In my opinion, they should stop the war immediately. You go by the battle line, wherever it is. Otherwise, it's too complicated. You'll never be able to figure it out. Oh, let's just give up. Let's just give Russia what they've stolen off Ukraine, because it's too complicated to think of any other solution. This is just insane. It's just, honestly, Trump is such a gargantuan fool. This is him thinking along those same lines here.
The war immediately. You go by the battle line wherever it is. Otherwise, it's too complicated. You'll never be able to figure it out. You stop at the battle line, and both sides should go home, go to their families, stop the killing, and that should be it. Stop right now at the battle line. I told that to President Zelensky. I told it to President Putin. Thank you very much, everybody. Stop the war.
But that's what Putin would want. He gets most of the Donbass. He gets Kherson. He gets, or half of Kherson, half of Zaporizhia, and Crimea. Yeah, just stop. Everyone go home. Everyone go home. Go back to your families. Putin's like, well, awesome. We get to keep everything that we have stolen. Like I've said to you before, Doris's house is broken into by Ivan, who lives across the road, but he's broken into Doris's house next door and just helped himself to all the food, everything downstairs, kicks Doris upstairs, who is not as strong as Ivan. And there's all this ruckus coming out there. There are arguments, there are plates flying. The police go round, say, hang on, what's going on here? And you can see that the police see there's this massive argument going on and say, look, the police say, we just want peace. We just want peace. We want quiet. The neighbours are getting really upset that there's all this noise coming out from here and all this kind of violence coming from inside. So it looks like this argument's quite a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, we understand, Ivan, that you have just walked into this house and you've helped yourself to the bottom floor. So what we're going to say is, let's call it quits here, right? Doris, you've got to live upstairs now, and only upstairs. You can't come down into this bottom floor. You have to rappel out the window. And Ivan, you can keep the bottom floor. And that's probably the easiest way we're going to get peace here. That really anything else is too complicated. Like, trying to force Ivan back to his own house over there it's a bit too difficult. So yeah. You get to keep that, and everyone's happy because it's quiet here. Thank you very much. Okay, Doris, are you happy with that? No, I'm freaking not happy with that. You just given away the bottom floor of my house, you dimwit. Call yourself the police? Okay, so the analogy breaks down because the US aren't the police, but they are one of the neighbours forcing Doris to give up the bottom floor of her house. Because, everyone wants a bit more quiet around here. And by the way, it's way too complicated to talk about getting Ivan out. No, we should all get together, beat the crap out of Ivan and get him out of the house. Oh, just honestly, it is ridiculous. Okay, here is a reporter talking to Trump again.
Putin, aren't you concerned that maybe the Russian president is trying to buy himself more time?
Yeah.
Great question. Are you getting played? Is Putin buying himself more time? Yes, he is. Yes, that's exactly what's going on. But actually, Trump's answer is fairly, actually, quite honest in a way, I think.
Yeah, but, I've been played all my life by the best of them. And I came out really well. So it's possible, a little time. It's all right. But
the other thing is that Trump's really not making much sense. He's just putting words together. It's possible, a little time. What do you mean, a little time? Like, honestly, he just says words.
I've been played all my life by the best of them. And I came out really well. So it's possible, a little time. It's all right. But I think that I'm pretty good at this stuff. I think that he wants to make a deal.
With Putin?
It's possible, a little time. it's all right. What does that mean? It's possible, a little time, it's all right. But the idea that said it's possible that he's being played, at least is an admission that Putin could be doing. Of course, Putin's doing that. Putin is playing for time, and he's won. He's got that time, and the US is not giving Tomahawks to the Ukrainians. The Russians are getting everything they want here, yet again. The analyst says no surprises, and Putin wins again. Having been given his talking to from Putin the day before, is it any surprise that he was never going to do? Is it any surprise that what he was never going to do anyway didn't happen? It was all about getting Putin in a room again to renew their bromance. Putin will give him nothing again except future vague trade promises post-war. And Putin thinks that Trump will make Ukraine toe the line. Zelensky never expected to get the missiles, but he has to ask, and he has to make it look like he's playing the Trump game. Credit to him for doing that, so because it must be an odious process. Meanwhile, Trump, to get out of supplying the missiles, says Ukraine is trying to escalate the war, which is partly true because only by doing that can maximum pressure be put on Russia. Besides which, Ukraine no longer needs American long-range weapons, as Russia is about to find out. Game played, everyone goes home. It's also pathetic that this is more about dancing around Trump's perception and ego than anything truly substantive. I mean, maybe they've been holding back a little bit in the hope that Tomahawks would be given. They're not going to be given, so let's just release the flamingos. I don't know. I would assume that Ukraine is operating at maximum at the moment and probably has been for some time. I just hope that they are able to produce more missiles and drones that they previously have been, and that they can stop Russia from hitting their industrial complex so badly. But I mean, this is a win for Russia. There's no doubt about it. And then Trump comes out and says this. This is his True Social post. The meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine was very interesting and cordial, but I told him, as I likewise strongly suggested to President Putin, that it's time to stop the killing and make the deal. Enough blood has been shed, with property lines being defined by war and guts. Property line, like, we're going back to the Doris analogy again. I mean, it's literally like that. Ivan has come in the house and he's drawn his property line across the stairs, and Doris gets upstairs and you get down, and I get downstairs, says Ivan. And then neighbor Brad comes along and says, well, this looks fair to me. These lines have been defined by war and guts. They should stop where they are, says Trump. They should stop where they are. Let both claim victory. Let history decide. No more shooting, no more death, no more vast and unsustainable sums of money spent. This is a war that would never have started if I were president. No, it's a war that never would have started if Russia hadn't invaded. Stop blaming other people. The blame here lies with Putin. You should have the guts to say this war would never have started had President Putin not decided, due to narcissistic megalomaniacal imperialism, to invade a neighboring country to try and take it over, to produce a legacy where he becomes Peter II. Again. Thousands of people being slaughtered each and every week. No more. Go home to your families in peace. This is poor, 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 poor. And then Caroline Levitt just comes out and spews the same kind of rhetoric. The White House press spokesperson said the US is growing weary of the war in Ukraine. The patience of Trump and the American people is wearing thin, she says. According to her, the US president's talks with first Putin, then with Zelensky, were warm but frank. However, the parties must accept reality and reach an agreement. In other words, Caroline Levitt is saying they must accept reality. The reality is that Russia's invaded. There's nothing anyone can do about it. They've got the territory they've got, and that's that. You just got to accept it. The accept reality part is not for Putin. That's for Zelensky. The United States is now advocating for complete capitulation. Yet again. It's absolutely disgusting. Now, Zelensky is obviously trying to spin this in the best possible way, talking to the press and whatnot. I spoke with our European partners, the leaders of the UK, Germany, Italy, Finland, Norway, and Poland, as well as with the heads of the EU and Secretary General of NATO. I shared details of my conversation with Trump. We discussed many important issues. The main priority now is to protect as many lives as possible, guarantee security for Ukraine, and strengthen all of us in Europe. Our national security advisors will discuss the next steps. We are coordinating our positions. I'm grateful for the conversation, for all the support. Is going to have to rely entirely on Europe, on the EU. And Europe and possibly NATO are now going to have to renegotiate again that prickly relationship with the United States. Zelensky discussed air defense with Trump. The positive signal is that we will work on it. Trump and I decided that we won't publicly discuss long-range missiles for now. So there's been this agreement that they're not going to be talking in public about Tomahawks and long-range missiles in general. The US doesn't want an escalation. I think that should have been the case anyway. There's no need to be litigating all of these agreements in public. The whole Tomahawk thing should have been discussed under the radar. It should have been given to Ukraine without any pomp and circumstance. And then you only find out that the Ukrainians have Tomahawks when they're blowing up Russian factories. We decided that we will work more with the production of weapons. The US and Ukraine, together with other countries, will work on the logistics of future supplies. Okay, a whole lot about nothing, really. That's all Zelensky can really discuss. Zelensky said, Ukraine has become strong enough over the years, but we cannot fight today with our own air defense against ballistic missiles, which our energy sector simply cannot withstand. This requires pressure. I believe that a package of appropriate weapons is pressure. In order to conduct some operations against military targets, you need a combination of factors. First of all, this is the use of drones and some other types of weapons together, and we lack something. Our own tools are appearing, but time is not on the side of people. In other words, they don't have the time or the ability to produce the scale of missiles that they need. So we can talk about flamingos and we can talk about whatever other type of weapon that Ukraine is producing, but it's clear from what Zelensky is admitting that they don't have enough, or the capabilities in there, or whatever. They need Tomahawks or something functionally similar from allies. Zelensky here says we need to sit and speak and to understand where we are. And I think this is the most important first step. And that's where we are. I think the President Trump understands that the most difficult question in any format of negotiations will be territory. It's a pity, but the territory of Ukraine. In other words, it's going to come down to, is it acceptable to draw lines on a map and say, right, you get to keep that, we don't. And that's the most difficult part, which is Zelensky saying we're not going to be happy with doing what Trump has demanded that we do. We need security guarantees, he says, from the US. We need the US because only the US now speaks with Russia. Only President Trump has dialogue with Russia, and that's very important. We need very strong security guarantees from the United States so that Putin will not come again with aggression. So we're back to exactly where we were 7 months ago, before Trump even came to power, which is we need security guarantees. We're never going to draw lines in the sand on a map if it doesn't. There's no deterrence for Russia. We need an absolute ironclad security guarantee, such as NATO. NATO is by far and away the most sensible security guarantee for us. We need accession to NATO, so there's Article 5 that protects us from Russia coming and taking a second bite to the apple. If we agree that, okay, Russia now control these areas, then what stops Russia attacking again in 3 years' time? Nothing. So you can't tell us to give away our territory without security guarantees. And that's where the US is important. So Zelensky, we need guarantees from the US. We need the US because only Trump has that dialogue. Because I'm afraid our country is afraid that if there is a ceasefire, and we need guarantees from the US that Putin will not come with aggression again. That is the be all and end all there. So Trump, you can say all you like about we need to just agree on what the lines are and go home to our families. You can talk that rhetoric until the cows come home, but it ain't going to happen until there's a security guarantee. And if you're not providing a robust security guarantee for Ukraine, then it's a non-starter, mate. It's a non-starter. Philip O'Brien, typically angry as a military historian and analyst. So it's just sent out this free post. So he's written a Substack on it. Trump is tormenting the Ukrainians by giving them hope of helping them in ways that he never will. Tomahawks, for example. I'll talk about why and why the media needs to stop helping him do so much damage. So this is an example. Trump equivocates on Ukraine's request for long-range missiles, says the New York Times. So present headline from New York Times there. This is what I mean by the press needing to be honest. Trump is not equivocating on sending Tomahawks to Ukraine. He's not sending them and coming up with excuses why he does not have to. If he wanted to send them, he can and would. You would if you could. You aren't so you can't. Or you would if you wanted to. You aren't so you don't want to. He doesn't want to. It's not equivocating. Christ, Trump just admitted he gave Zelensky nothing but forced him to travel all the way to Washington to be told he needed to make concessions to Putin for peace. He really just tortured the Ukrainian president because it makes him feel good. Honestly, that's as good an analysis, pithy as it is as good as analysis as you get. Force Ukraine to come to Washington in some torturous expression of desired capitulation. We want you to give up to Russia. I've just spoken to Putin. You weren't expecting that. I wasn't expecting it. Putin phoned me. Turns out he's got compromat on me. Or it turns out he can easily manipulate me. Or it turns out I'm just weak. Whatever it is, you have to do what Putin wants now. Ukraine has to do what Putin wants. Sorry about that, but that's how it is. See you later, Z. See ya. Honestly, this is really, really, really bad. And I just feel so sad for Ukraine. They've just been sold down the river by Donald Trump again. It is just not acceptable. And yet here we are. This is like the cycle that goes on and on and on and on. We have hope that Trump has turned a corner because he ends up speaking to the right people. And so this is literally what happens is that, had Trump not spoken to Putin 2 days ago, I think this meeting looks entirely different. But Putin knows what he's doing, phones up Trump the day before, and Putin gets to manipulate the outcome of this entire process. Putin controls Trump. Putin controls Trump. And again, if you are a viewer here that thinks Trump is strong, he's the best US president ever. He's brilliant. If you're the launcher IT or the Andy S's of the world who are singing the praises of Trump till the cows come home, I don't know how you can look at this process and think that Trump is anything other than either a useful idiot or an outright agent for the Russian Federation, for the Kremlin, for the dictator Putin. He has been played.